Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Welcome to MiCannaPulse Live, our fourth edition. I am Harry Barash. I'd like to welcome a very familiar face, a MiCannaPulse admin, a veteran advocate, and a great friend, Anton Harb, as a celebrity guest co-host of the show today. Anton, always good chopping it up with you. And welcome to MiCannaPulse. You're definitely no stranger to broadcast, podcast. What's going on in your world?
Well, Harry, I am glad to be here. I'm glad to be back behind the mic. It's good to have a forum again to kind of reach out and connect with the community that we have. So many years we've built this structure of friendships and business and all these positives and some negatives along the way. For those who don't know me, my name is Anton Harb Jr. I am a former military officer. I was in the Army and worked for the government for a while back in the day, and now I'm retired. I appreciate that very much. I appreciate that. And now, as I've been retired for some time, veteran advocacy has been kind of at the forefront of things I'm passionate about, and cannabis as well. So, we've had a lot of bumps along the way, but I've met a lot of great people. I've been passionate. I've worked with the state to put together a program, basically creating access to licensed, safe medicines for veterans to partake if they foresee, it helping their quality of life. And I'm also on the CRA's Consumer Connections Group, which was started by one of the late and greats, Rick Thompson. And I've been doing that for a while now, so I have a lot of passion for not only the veteran side of things, but all consumers and making sure all consumers have access to clean, safe products. So happy to be here.
Yeah, no, those are two things that you always constantly speak of and speak about, and you can tell your passion in those topics, through your actions and your voice. So. Appreciate everything that you do for the industry, everything that you do for MiCannaPros, and we appreciate you again being here. There's obviously a lot going on in the industry that we're going to dive into here pretty soon. There's a lot going on with MiCannaPros, and we will be focused now that. Vegas is over. We're getting ready to focus on our next event, Meet Connect Puff. Again, that is scheduled for May 14th. You will be seeing plenty of that once the new year starts. So we hope to have our biggest and best show. Obviously, this is our fourth edition. We look forward to continuing this live broadcast and bringing industry experts, best in class leaders in the respective categories onto the show to share their wisdom and knowledge. And we have, speaking of experts, we do have a great lineup today to discuss the two most impactful and influential decisions that have been made since the start of the industry that will certainly change the landscape of the industry going forward. This is our first show since the Michigan Court of Claims Judge Seema Patel declined the MICIA's injunction to block the 24% wholesale tax. I know the MICIA is working on filing an appeal, but it has not been submitted as of yet. In the meantime, the wholesale tax goes into effect on January 1st, 2027, and we seem to have a lot more questions than answers. So, yeah, before we introduce our guest, I'd like to give a shout out. I would like to give a shout out to our four partners for this episode. Anton. The first sponsor we'd like to highlight is Band, which is part of the Oak Canna Brands family. There's a good chance you've seen Oak Canna products on your local store shelves. They produce several different lines of Band edibles, along with Toker's Choice products and premium flower produced by Canna Boys. Make sure you keep an eye out for their new waffle cones that just hit the market. By the way, Oak Canna also owns the Clinic Dispensaries. They have a store on 8 Mile in Detroit, Ypsilanti, Riverview, and the Micro Clinic in Westland. A special thank you to owners Jason and Steve for sponsoring this MiCannaPulse Live broadcast. Our next sponsor is our longtime friends at Gold Crown Extracts, and also our panelists today. Are you tired of guessing which brands to trust? Consumers deserve true quality. That's why you should choose Gold Crown products. No shortcuts, no gimmicks. They offer the cleanest cannabis products and are trusted by more than 300 dispensaries and their customers. Thank you, Gold Crown, for sponsoring today's show.
And for our next sponsor, we have Community Choice Credit Union. Community Choice Credit Union has proudly served Michigan since 1935. Their mission is to help neighbors achieve financial success through affordable, accessible solutions. Whether you're opening your first account or planning for retirement, Community Choice is committed to serving the cannabis industry in many different aspects, including providing banking solutions and loans for commercial or personal use. For the last 6 years, Donna Bashi, Vice President of Business Development, who is a legend in the Michigan cannabis banking circles, has led their cannabis business program. They serve over 600 cannabis companies in the state and have 25 locations to serve their growing customer base. Thank you, CCCU. And for our final sponsor, we have Beamer, based in Commerce Township, Michigan, locally owned and operated. Beamer is a global leader in custom smoking accessories since 2010. Available in over 30 countries, Beamer specializes in custom cones, paper packs, glass tips, grinders, candles, and much, much more. Trusted by top brands including House of Dank, Jars, King of Buds, Levels, Seed Junkie, Wild Bills, and many more. Known for unbeatable pricing, unmatched customization, Beamer continues to set the standard for quality and innovation in the industry. We are proud to partner up with a company that is so dedicated to excellence, value, and American craftsmanship. Based in Commerce Township, Michigan, and family owned and operated by Ryan and Randy Salim. Beamer has been a huge supporter of ours and has been a staple at our events for the last couple of years. Thank you very much to all of our sponsors. We do appreciate
you. General Counsel with Distro 10. Alan has been practicing law since 2013. Prior to his work in the cannabis industry, Alan was a tax attorney. While with Plunkett and Cooney in 2019, Alan was appointed to serve as a member of Michigan's adult use marijuana stakeholder work groups. Alan is currently General Counsel for Distro 10, which also happens to be the largest grower in the state of Michigan with 20 Class C licenses. They're also a processor as well. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Harry. And it's not 20, it's over 200 licenses at our 2 outdoor farms.
Oh, okay. Well, I just missed a zero there. That's pretty impressive. We appreciate you being here. Good to see you, my friend. And next we have Jonathan Kello, who is a Michigan cannabis veteran and the CEO of EVO Farms. Since entering the space in 2010, he has navigated the industry's complex evolution, transitioning a boutique caregiver operation into a powerhouse enterprise. Based in Warren, Michigan, EVO Farms now employs a team of 90 and supplies over 300 retail locations with in-house brands, Gold Crown and Anarchy. Beyond internal labels, Jonathan Kello oversees a robust B2B business service division specializing in manufacturing and general packaging. A lifelong advocate for nature-inspired culture, he remains committed to elevating the standards of production and service in the Michigan market. Welcome to the broadcast, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me, Harry.
Absolutely. And finally, we have Simon Gumma. Simon is president of Gumma Atcho CPA. Simon has been providing financial, tax, accounting, and business services since 2000. He founded Gumma CPA in 2011, and in 2016, Simon ventured into providing professional services to the cannabis industry, and is considered by many as the GOAT and one of the most recognized and accomplished CPAs in the cannabis space. Welcome to the show, Simon. Thanks for being here.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me.
So let's start out by getting to know you guys a little bit, your background, where you started, and how you got to where you are today. Simon, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks again for having me. And
Absolutely.
Proud to be part of this panel. Powerhouse team we got here. But yeah, so I'm from Detroit, born and raised in Detroit. And as you mentioned, humbled by those kind words you put out there.
It's the truth.
Thank you. So yeah, I've been a CPA since 2011 when I founded my practice, and all my clients are small business owners. And I got into the cannabis space around 2016, maybe a little bit earlier than that, with the caregivers that had been around and providing some consulting services to them. And then it really catapulted for me in 2017 when I was asked to speak at a seminar with the Cannabis Legal Group, and we had a packed house at the Cobo Hall or Huntington Place. And just before licensing, we were talking about applications coming out, legal structure, accounting, tax, a whole bunch of stuff. So that's me in a nutshell in terms of my cannabis involvement and my practice as well.
Great. Jonathan.
Harry, first, just want to point out, this is awesome that you have this group. It started from a small little Facebook group and a little more like underground days, and now we're broadcasting online to people legally.
Yeah, it's
so
amazing.
Pretty cool. Cool. So my roots are very underground. I started in the caregiver space back in 2010. I actually rented a house in Commerce Township, ripped apart the basement, paid $800 a month in rent, ripped apart the basement, started growing weed. That transitioned into, I ended up managing a dispensary in 2015 in Southwest Detroit. That's where I was exposed to concentrates and extracts. Bought them there, tried them, had crazy experiences, and said, wow, I want to get into that part of the industry. We foresaw that legalization was coming and, just teed ourselves up for licensing. I believe we were one of the first processors in Warren. This is like 2019, maybe late 19, early 20. And went from, a 4-person operation in Detroit, making extracts, moved into the licensing industry, and we're happy to be here.
Awesome. No, I remember you guys from, I remember dealing, crossing paths at times in the caregiver days with you, and have known your family for numerous years, and not surprised at your success based on, what I saw back then. I'm still seeing the same or better now. So congrats on your success.
Thank you.
Then we have my man, Alan Shamoun.
Thanks, Harry. So I was a tax attorney at Plunkett Cooney, and in 2017, 18, when a lot of the clients of Plunkett were going for cannabis licensing or medical licensing, I started getting involved in advising them on, filing sales tax returns, which was very foreign to the cannabis industry that operated in a very, black market, gray market area. And so that, starting to advise more cannabis clients turned into me helping further along with compliance and licensing. And then from there, things kind of took off, and I had a number of clients. One of those happened to be the owners of Distro 10 for a different business venture they had. And so I left Plunkett Cooney to come in-house with them, and we started Distro 10 in 2022. And over the last 3 years, it's kind of been a rocket trajectory north. We started at 5,000 square feet roughly, and within about 4 months, we already outgrew the space. And so, as we mentioned earlier, right now we have 2 outdoor cultivation facilities. the ability to grow up to over 400,000 plants with all the licenses that we have. We have an indoor cultivation facility, and we have two processing licenses, two separate suites. One of them is our logistics hub, and one of them is our production floor. We do everything from extraction to making pre-rolls to filling vape carts and everything in between.
What are some of the brands that you guys rep?
So the main ones that we have are obviously the distro brand. We have Rocket we create as well, which is Rocket Bites, edibles, and Rocket Sticks is some pre-rolls. We also have a licensing agreement with Cheech and Chong. So any Michigan products with that name as began in our facility. And then we also white label for a number of clients as well, just because the efficiency that we're able to provide them. We just do a lot of white labeling for companies. So
awesome. That's a pretty impressive portfolio that they've quietly grown over a very, very short period of time. And I'm sure, a lot of hard work and being at the right place at the right time had a lot to do with that. So let's get to the nitty gritty here, guys. Obviously, there's a lot of things that are happening here in the industry that are affecting a lot of people, not just plant touching, but also ancillary. Let's talk about the 24% wholesale tax and what you're seeing and kind of how you feel that this is going to be, how it's going to affect you guys individually or your clients, Simon. Let's start with you, Simon.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, as you guys are probably already hearing and seeing, some businesses are shuttering their doors and exiting the Michigan industry. Unfortunately, they don't see a long-term successful path to staying in business, so they're exiting already. For us, for CPAs in the space, it's going to be an added service that we're going to provide to our clients. My firm deals with every type of license in the industry. Whether you're cultivation or processing, this impacts you, obviously, where this 24% takes effect as of 1/1. And, we're building out processes and getting information out there to educate our clients and the industry for that matter, because for me, it's not just providing advice to my clients. It's kind of goes full circle. I deal with a lot of other CPAs. I've dealt with Jonathan and Alan several times, and whether or not you have an in-house CPA or you outsource services to a CPA such as myself, we just want to get information out there on how to enhance your SOPs and account for this tax and make sure, as other people have said, this is the one chance everyone can raise their prices, because it's a very, very tight market in Michigan. It's a very depressed margin in this industry. So it's unfortunate. I think this industry is going to face more adversity in the near future, especially with the rescheduling I'm sure we're going to talk about here soon. But for us, for CPAs, our work doesn't really change. We're just going to have added services to provide to our clients. But for my clients specifically, it's, again, building out these SOPs, making sure they account for this tax, make sure it's accounted in a particular manner that doesn't negatively impact their financial statements and give them additional tax exposure. So, with that's kind of what we're looking at from a CPA's perspective.
Jonathan and Alan, how do you guys see this affecting you? Have you felt any effect by it yet? I know that December sales are probably through the roof right now. People stocking up, trying to avoid the tax. How are you guys preparing for this? And how do you think that it's going to affect you?
I mean, yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Harry. December sales right now are kind of through the roof, and it's, we're working 12, 13-hour days just trying to get orders out before the end of the year to make sure that people aren't getting hit with that tax if they, can avoid it. And so I expect, in the immediate future, sales to be down for January, February, because people are overstocking. And, I don't really know what's going to happen with the industry. As Simon kind of referenced, it's kind of a reset for people where they can kind of reassess their pricing on things. They can see how they're billing people and see, really at the end of the day, it's your relationship with that retail partner, because nobody has the margins to eat 24%. No grower or processor can eat that percentage. No retailer can eat that percentage. So at the end of the day, the people that are hurt the most is really the consumers, because the tax is going to exponentially raise the price. And if a retailer is going to be paying more for that, and they typically operate on whatever percentage of margin that they offer, that's just going to increase the price to the consumer at the end of the day. And so, there's a lot of hurdles ahead from a grower and processor perspective. Are you properly, accounting for that 24%? Are you saving the money and stashing it on the side because it's supposed to be a quarterly tax? And since it's something new, are people going to properly, account for that and calculate the fees correctly? And then when it comes to the state trying to collect, my prediction is this: in 18 months, there's a whole different landscape of how many licensees exist. I think there's going to be a significant reduction in operating businesses, especially if other ancillary bills that the state has kind of considered, like the COD bill, if that gets passed, that's, on top of the 24%. If retailers are required to pay cash on delivery and can't have any terms, that to me is as big of a hit as the 24%. Because a lot of the smaller chains, smaller mom and pop stores, or if you have 1 or 2 locations and you're relying on that, 30 or 60-day terms to pay off that invoice, having to pay right away, you're kind of setting yourself up to fail.
Absolutely. Yeah. This question is, regarding, I guess, how people are going to be taxed, what amount, what metrics are they using, and who's getting the short end of the stick? Is it the people that are producing the low end product, based on what you're going to be taxed on an average basis? Are the vertical companies going to have an advantage? Are they going to have are they going to have a disadvantage? Anyone want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I don't mind. Just to kind of piggyback off of what Alan was saying, it's going to be a totally different landscape here in the next 12 to 18 months. But the tax is triggered at the first taxable transfer. So there's, people are going to transfer product back and forth, and the tax is not going to be assessed multiple times. It's taxed on the first transfer, taxable transfer, because it's when it first goes to the retail market. And again, we're advising clients to pass this on to your retailer, and we're advising our retailers to pass this on to the customer. I know there's a lot of.
What about the wholesaler? And I'm sorry to cut you off. What about the wholesaler and what they're going to be paying? What amount? What are the guidelines of which, is it going to be an average price of different products? Like outdoor is going to be, X. You're not going to be able to sell to yourself for $1, right?
Right.
And avoid the 24% tax. So if you're vertical, and how are you going to what numbers are you using to tax yourself?
So no, go ahead.
So if you are, again, making high-end product, are you the beneficiary of the tax? And if you're making a low-end product, are you at a disadvantage? And are you going to be able to pass that tax on, being that it's going to be double, triple of what somebody that might be selling something higher than you, that averages out the metrics?
Yeah, so let's start with wholesalers that are not vertically integrated, or companies that are not vertically integrated. So if you're selling product to a retailer, a third-party retailer, 24% is assessed to the total invoice price prior to discounts. So discounts are not allowed to be factored into the tax. It's 24% on the invoice price. So that includes transportation fees, any other fees and charges that are being assessed to your customer. All those have to be subtotaled, and then the 24% is assessed on that total. So now, with 280E, we had advised clients to charge retailers the transportation fee because it's part of their cost of goods. We would run it through the invoice price as a cost of goods with the financial statements for determining gross profit. Now, I don't know if that, I would go with that option because now the retailer is subject to 24% tax on any transportation fees. So that's something the retailer and the wholesaler is going to have to work out, but it's the total invoice, all the charges on the invoice prior to discounts that's going to be assessed. Now, if you're vertically integrated, the state is going to assign what's called the AWP, the average wholesale price, every quarter based on the best available information, in their words, best available information from metric, of course. And it's still yet to be determined how they're going to determine average wholesale price because there's thousands upon thousands of products out there. Is it based on THC? Is it based on ounces? Is it based on certain packages and things like that? So the state is working on this. They've mentioned, I talk to the state pretty often, as I'm sure other CPAs do. Guidance will come out as soon as it's available. So once they know more, they're going to put it out there. It's not like they're going to wait to get information out there. But as soon as they're building out these processes and getting guidelines set in place, they're going to communicate that information to the general public.
I have a question.
Harry, to the point you just made as well, and Simon kind of pointed it out, is how do you quantify those products, right? Outdoor flower is very different than indoor flower. Is it based on the strain name? Is it based on the THC percentage? Like there's a lot of different variables that go into that, and 3 different growers are going to make 3 different, quality of product, even if it's the same strain. And so this, for the state to come in and say, here's the cost, or here's the value you're going to put, it's going to be something that people are going to be fighting over for a long time, as far as what that, anyone that's fully integrated is only going to be penalized by this. So, people will probably come up with creative ways to avoid it if it's possible, that are still legal and compliant, but it's going to be a fight with the state, I'm sure, as to what that price is, because, the state right now puts out a bulletin, the CRA does, as far as, how many plants are in the ground, how many pounds are not sold, those kind of metrics. So they have the data available from Metric, but nothing in there is talking about the quality of the product. And so if I have, a pound to sell and Simon has a pound to sell, we're selling it for 2 different price points, which one's the better price to use? And industry wide, you really can't do that either, because then you're comparing it to 4 million pounds of outdoor flower grown compared to whatever the number is for indoor, which is not a number I haven't seen ever released.
Yeah, when you're speaking about all of these numbers and license types and, small businesses that this is going to affect, when this was passed, right, I think, we've been fortunate to, a lot of us have relationships with individuals who helped draft the MRTMA. And, they were very specific about, the intention of the way the law was written was never to levy these types of taxes, right? And after it was passed, we heard comments from politicians on basically both sides of the aisles, but how this could be a way to essentially, thin the herd, to put it bluntly, as far as almost pricing people just right out of the industry. And it seems the more we learn about how this tax is being levied, the more muddy the waters become. So, from a CPA and an attorney perspective, how relevant are you seeing, the spirit of the law and the spirit of the tax code and a lot of the black and white things that we rely upon to help an industry flourish, that we're not seeing and be as transparent as we may have hoped with this new tax coming out? Now, is there anything y'all are doing to prepare for this to roll out, for these unforeseens, or are you able to kind of lean on the spirit of the law when you're providing guidance to your clients and licensees?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll start, Alan. We don't wait for the law here because it's never a good thing. But once information is out there, once the law has taken place, we're already acting. We're already trying to figure out angles and avenues to educate our clients and implement procedures to account for this law. And then when the federal government or the state government issues additional guidance, then we may already have certain things in place or already have a certain mindset that we were taking. And if it's different than the guidance that's issued, then we'll tweak it accordingly. But no, we're already building out processes for our clients, and we deal with a lot of people, so we're communicating that to our clients on the daily. So whether it's through QuickBooks or different systems, Stash Stock, whatever you use, we're customizing a process for you to account for this. And with that, I think Alan mentioned it earlier, the state is not going to collect any payments until the end of the year, actually until next year technically, because they want everything filed on the fourth quarter return, because they still haven't built the process. They still haven't built the back end yet. It's in the works, but it hasn't been completed. And I've been told it's going to be completed by the end of the first quarter. And then they're going to have a pilot program with some operators to kind of test it. But so what we're advising our clients is to park that money into a sweep account, accrue that tax, and park it somewhere just in case this bill doesn't go away, this law doesn't go away. It's likely to stay, but there's a lawsuit that's trying to overturn this 24% tax. And if it doesn't win, if we don't succeed, then the tax is going to stay. So we need people to accrue and book this money on the financials and account for it somewhere, and don't touch it. It's going to be very tempting to utilize that money for operations and things like that. You run into some risks there, but for not having the money available when it comes due. So these are conversations we're having. I'm sure attorneys are having similar conversations, but it goes on, and it's not a one size fits all. So we really try to customize it to meet the needs and the goal of that client.
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, Anton, it's, as much as I may disagree with the judge's opinion and think that the 24%, tax was kind of a workaround around Merkma on the excise tax and something that they should have been able to do without the required votes, is, we kind of have to deal with the cards that were dealt. So, working with our retail partners, they understand, obviously it's coming. There's really no choice for us. We have to, as Simon, mentioned, we have to collect it, because in the chance that it doesn't get overturned on appeals, or, however far this goes in the legal perspective, is, we can't be in a situation where we haven't collected it because we don't agree with it. And then come July, come August, the Court of Appeals agrees with the Court of Claims. And now we're left trying to come up with 24% on, millions of dollars in sales that we never collected. So, just working again with the retail partners, it's accumulating that money until it's got to be owed to the state. If it ends up being appealed and we win, then, great for the industry. It's going to be a year of turmoil, I think, between now and then. But, for us, again, it's just really the issue is educating consumers, because come January 1st, some retailers, even though they bought product without the 24% tax, they may mark up those products and blame the 24% wholesale tax. We don't have any control over that, obviously, as a producer, as a cultivator. But honestly, it's just educating the consumer as to why products went up in price overnight, because it's going to be, it could be a gradual thing. It could be an overnight thing. It depends on the retail store. And, it's obviously an advantage on the retail side of how they want to play that. But, it's unfortunate, because it's going to hurt them the most. And, Harry, to your question earlier about, who can kind of field this the best, the high quality producers or the low quality budget guys, I think it's going to impact everybody. I don't think anyone's going to be able to avoid this. The only benefit to the kind of the high priced guys is maybe they have a little better margin, but I would assume they have higher costs, right? They're producing better quality product. They should have more inputs, no matter what that is. So whether it's packaging, whether it's more nutrients, no matter, what it is, they're going to have higher costs to produce that better crop or better product. So, it's kind of one and the same. And I think it's going to hit everybody.
Do you see investment strategies becoming more aggressive, or kind of more conservative now because we have this tax that's coming up. We have, it's survival for a lot of folks, especially small businesses. Are the general advice of basically how to move forward kind of into unknown territory. I mean, are you seeing investors and business owners kind of being more conservative and reserving cash flow for these types of scenarios, or is they going all in and just seeing what they can get and hope the wheels don't fall off? Alan, I guess that'd be a good one for you, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, it's, we're reinvesting in the farms. We're, investing capital to try to get a better yield on them. I mean, we're all in on our facilities. So we don't see any reason to pull back. I mean, we have very good relationships. We're in 400 retail stores, so we can't, stop producing. So for us, it's not a time to pull back. If anything, it's, putting the pedal to the metal because we see opportunity. We already operate on razor thin margins. So, we're one of the, kind of companies that takes advantage of these situations, hopefully. And, we produce a lot of products and a lot of pre-rolls and a lot of different, variation of products. So hopefully this is an opportunity for us to, not get squeezed, but everybody will. Like I said, I'm sure people are going to not be ordering the same that they did this year, next year, because sales are going to be down. It's going to hit everybody, like I said, and keep saying, and we don't know what it's going to be.
So you're expecting definitely less sales next year.
I would say not only
if you keep the same footprint.
Yeah, I would say 100%. I think a number of retail stores are just going to close. So by very nature, we're going to lose out on customers that are currently in our portfolio. And again, if other bills get passed, like the COD bill, I think that hurts us as much, or if not more than the 24%, because so many relationships that we have are built on those credit terms.
Harry, Alan, question for you as a follow-up to that with the COD bill. Obviously CODs are going to impact the industry tremendously, and a lot of wholesalers offer terms. The tax is assessed when the product is sold. So what are you guys doing to, mitigate if the COD bill passes, or if not, how, what are some of your practices that you guys are thinking of implementing to ensure that you receive money and collections for the invoices in order to pay this tax? I mean, as you pointed out, Simon, the good thing is the first year, right, we have a brief time to kind of collect it and sit on it for a little while. So, I mean, again, we're going to kind of just take it as it goes, right? If the rules change, if they, come out with new policies, we kind of just take it as it goes. It's, we're hoping that they hear us and they make changes to the laws or to the rules based on feedback from the industry. I mean, we are part of MiCAA, so we're definitely, our voice is heard through that, trade organization. But at the end of the day, it's just one voice or a series of voices, and it's not, we're not lawmakers. So we can only do so much. But I mean, directly, Simon, what can we do? It's, just have cash available. Again, a lot of people are struggling right now. It's not a secret in the cannabis industry. One thing that go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, no, but 280E is getting removed, right? Rescheduling just happened. Isn't that going to make up for the 24% wholesale tax?
Well, I'll let Simon answer on the tax side of things, but I mean, I've seen a lot of different comments and views on the executive order President Trump signed. And just to be clear, it didn't reschedule it yet. It just advised the Attorney General to, work with the DEA to reschedule. But we don't know what that's going to mean. Some people are predicting interstate commerce. I don't see that really happening just because so many states have different rules, and they're not going to let you just start taking it across state lines, in mass transit by any means. So, is 280E going away? I guess that's one benefit. Possibly getting better banking situations or VCs wanted to get into cannabis. But honestly, like in the state of Michigan, we've been around a number of years. California, Washington have been around even longer. I feel like a lot of the banks or a lot of the investment companies that wanted to have been in cannabis already would have been. And so I don't see going to Schedule 3 changes much on a banking side or investment side. There may be some, more acquisitions or some mergers. People think big pharma or big tobacco is going to come into cannabis. Again, they have opportunities to come in the last several years. I don't see it just being a big play where Philip Morris is, dominating in 40 states tomorrow.
Well, Alan, too, when you bring up a good point, as far as like the big pharma argument coming out, people don't realize the amount of money that needs to be invested into an FDA clinical trial, tens of millions potentially, right? Nobody wants to put those types of dollars out the door. They want to be the individual who can capitalize when it becomes generic 2 years in after it's been approved, right? So the
Right.
big pharma argument is certainly, are we going to see the Philip Morrises get involved? Maybe potentially, right? But when we talk about 280E, and maybe Simon can chime in on this too, one of the things that I've kind of read about and maintained, and kind of I have a little bit of insight into that space, 280E will, Michigan licensees, if they reschedule marijuana, that is a FDA approved product, which we only have 2 drugs that are currently FDA approved. A lot of the 280E conversations that I've heard are specifically just coming from the cannabis industry. I have not heard anything at the government level where they're stating that this is potentially going to go away. And, if it doesn't go away, I feel like a lot of people are hedging their bets on this type of tax break being these breaks that they've never been able to enjoy. But I don't see it that way. I see it as the research process becoming easier. If you're a NIDA facility, DEA approved, which there's only 7 in the country, then yeah, maybe your life's going to get a little bit easier. But the schools and the researchers that are out there doing this type of research, they're going to get access to study drug to do these clinical trials that were never able to get past many of the FDA hurdles because it was a Schedule 1. So I don't know. I'm kind of curious to hear from both of y'all what you feel like, having a background in both the law and the tax code. Are we, jumping the gun at assuming 280E is going to go away, or I guess what are your feelings on that?
Yeah, very valid points there, Anton. Is 280E really going to go away? I'd like to think so. We're going to make a strong argument that it is going to. We're going to have to wait and see what the federal government advises and provides guidance on this topic. But, we get excited that this rescheduling is going to happen, which, to Alan's point, it needs to, it's an executive order. It's not official until the DOJ or the DEA or both, perhaps, I'm not sure, adopt this change. But this
wouldn't get this far if it wasn't going to get approved, though, right?
Pardon me?
It wouldn't get this far if it's not going to get approved.
Correct. I believe that. I believe it's going to happen.
Let's assume that
yeah,
it's going to get approved, and
yep.
Is 280E going to be removed? And if it is, obviously we know it affects retailers the most. How much does it affect processors and growers and other businesses as well? Other licensed types, testing labs and or secure transport. But in your current day-to-day business, Simon. But yeah, assuming it's going to get approved by the DOJ, is 280E going to go away?
On the surface, yes, 280 is going to go away. However, there's a likelihood of it not going away. Again, because of the medical terminology that's being discussed with this rescheduling. This is for medical use. This is for research and development. FDA approved pathways to get this product into the market. I believe there's even DEA registered channels, being that this will be a Schedule 3 product. So yes, 280 is going to go away, but is there going to be limitations for adult use businesses, retailers, cultivation, processors, which is 95% of the industry now? Time will tell, because 280E applied to Schedule 1. The definition of 280E, it's 2 sentences really, but it only allows you cost of goods for trade or business in an illegal activity of selling illicit products. Well, that goes away. But are they going to limit? Is the federal government going to limit this to just medical? I would think not. I'm not an attorney on really trying to interpret the law, but I would make if I was an attorney, I'd make a strong argument that 280 does go away, only because of the IRS's own definition of 280E itself and the application of it. Now, are they going to strip it down and only have it applied to medical, and maybe update some other laws to try to keep it active? I think not, but it's a small possibility. I think that will happen, that it might still stay in effect is what I mean.
Harry, to Simon and Anton's point, in the executive order, Trump only references medical states, 40 states and the District of Columbia. He also mentions, the senior care and veterans that are, the positive benefits of CBD and, products containing THC. To Simon's point, there's no mention or reference to any adult use or recreational, cannabis use. By definition, it kind of goes against the whole medical research if it's a recreational drug. So to Simon's point, there may be a caveat cut in to, the IRS's view of 280E. And, it's going to be on several companies. I'm sure we'll legally challenge it in tax court and try to push it through if the scheduling comes through. But the DEA, as my understanding is, the Attorney General, through a rulemaking process with the DEA, is the one that has the authority to reschedule this. The DEA has been very against rescheduling marijuana, whether Trump was in office or not. And so depending on, who else is in that room, Trump may, grab some good headlines. And, obviously it impacts even the hemp farm bill that was just, passed a month ago or so, changing the definition of the way that think, so there's a lot of things going on in that executive order, and not all of it was well received in Washington, I'm sure. And so there's a lot of different things that are moving forward, and the DEA is against it. The, Congress is against it, changing the farm bill because it kind of got rid of the loophole for a lot of the, Delta 8 products and all the stuff that sits on a, gas station or convenience store shelf that's not through a licensed facility, which obviously as a, licensee, we welcome that change significantly. And so if Trump just undid that with his comments in the executive order, obviously I'm not for that at all, but 280E is a 280E would impact a lot of people here. And yes, as a grower and processor, it doesn't impact us as much as a retail store for sure, but it still impacts us. There's still costs we can't reduce, we can't account for in our taxes.
Alan, I have to one quick follow-up question to that. As an attorney, I'm sure, the Controlled Substance Act, Title 21 is probably something you're pretty familiar with. Do you feel like in this conversation, we're speaking about this reclassification of marijuana and what it can do? And when I say marijuana, I'm thinking more like the FDA medical route that they're trying to go for. But would any product even being sold by a licensee qualify as a Schedule 3 narcotic? Because it's not any type of, the FDA isn't going to approve flour or edibles or vape cartridges. Like a lot of these products would never even fall under the scheduling language contained within FDA rules and DEA and the Controlled Substance Act. Like, what is your thought on that? What if they, is it possible that none of this even applies to the industry period because those products can't be obtained?
No, I think that's a good point, Anton. And it's been, an issue. Even the CRA's pointed out with, people claiming health benefits on edibles or other, products where, I've seen on a lot of gummy packaging, this is good for sleeping or for, anxiety. And those are claims that the FDA would normally have to approve. And unless the CRA gets some kind of complaint against them, it kind of flies under the radar until somebody notices when they're doing an inspection on a retail store. So, to answer your question, even Trump referenced, a lot of the products are there's THC limits that they think are unfair. And, maybe that's the case. But yeah, many of the products sold today on a retail store probably will never get FDA approval without years and years of research to show what, the best, percentages are of THC, what the, best percentage of dosage is right. It depends on certain ages or weight. There's a number of factors, on the medical side, even, you see a doctor and you get a patient card, you go to them, once a year, once every 2 years to get renewed. You're not seeing them to get a prescription every month like you would, some other painkillers or some other, medication that you need. So it's a whole different industry, a whole different market. And yeah, to your point, I don't see any of this really getting FDA approval. And I think, again, that's one of the things they have to work through to determine, is this something we even want to try to tackle? Because all the different states that are in not just medical, but adult use, and the different rules for those products in those states. Michigan's kind of, aligned where the only real difference is testing for microbials. That's, if it's a medical or adult use product, but some other states have different rules too. And so now how do you create a rule for the whole country that doesn't conflict with all those state rules?
I testified before the FDA about 2 years ago now, because I don't know if many people are familiar. When we passed the MRTMA, we set aside $40 million derived from the excise tax to study cannabis in veterans with PTSD and see if it can help with the suicide epidemic. And I was involved at many different levels, and I found myself at one point actually testifying before the FDA because many of the studies that were being proposed by grantees and that were able to get some of that money, they can't get the study off the ground, right? The FDA did not want to approve any type of clinical trial where marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to, is being smoked, period. They were absolutely against it. Now, they did end up getting approval just very recently, but we were supposed to, it was a 5-year study. That was 5 years ago, and we are just getting off the ground. So the FDA is a whole nother animal, I think, to deal with, that people don't realize just how gigantic of a hurdle that is, executive order or not. But I don't know, Harry, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, everything takes time, and not everything is what you expect it to be or what you hope for it to be. There's definitely, this is going to be sitting out there kind of in purgatory for quite some time until, and even then, if it does get approved, I think there's going to be still a lot of time, like you guys just said, for, to perform clinical studies, to, get grant money, and to find, reputable medical value in some of these products. So it's definitely going to be a long road, and some people who are hoping for some 280 relief are going to be disappointed that's not going to offset the 24% wholesale tax.
Well, don't forget, they are not done, Harry. I mean,
Yeah.
I think they are not through. They are not through with creating as volatile of an environment as they possibly can. I guess moving on from, 280E, I guess the next question would be, what's the future? Where are we going? Which realistically, I guess nobody knows. We're kind of in uncharted territories here, but Michigan being what was once the most progressive recreational cannabis law in the country we're taking, in my opinion anyways, we're taking steps backwards, right? And we're seeing things like the COD bill, is that going to get passed? And what does that do to businesses who just don't have that type of cash flow laying around? Do you see a lot of, interest from the industry with a lot of the cash on delivery? Makes sense for a lot of folks that aren't getting paid, but at the same token, it creates a real hurdle for folks to be able to keep the doors open. So what's the future? If we had a crystal ball, what do y'all think if you had your way, or just kind of how you're reading the environment that we're in right now?
Yeah, I mean, Anton, just from a processor perspective and talking to other people in the industry, as opposed to a COD bill, what I'd like to see is something that the CRA has talked about doing, is people that don't pay their bills essentially having issues getting renewal of their license. The problem with that, and I've talked to people in the AG's office as well, is the CRA or the state of Michigan really doesn't want to play moderator for hey, I claim you have a balance of 100,000, you claim a balance of 70, what's the right number, and what are you going to pay? all those kind of things. So, they'd want to see it taken to judgment. And for somebody that can pay a lawyer and say, hey, just kick this can down the road as long as possible, depending on the court and the judge, that could be 2 years. And so as much as the CRA would say, in their new administrative rules, which again haven't been approved yet, but there's floating language in there that says, it's something that they may look at as part of renewal, is any judgments against you, and especially to other industry, holders, is, have you paid your bills essentially? Because to your point, Anton, if a number of people aren't paying their bills, it makes the operators that, that's giving out all this credit a harder time to collect and a harder time to operate, because you can only go so long without getting paid. You got rent, you have payroll, you have to buy more inventory to sell. So there's a domino effect if people aren't paying. But again, I prefer not to COD bill, but some other mechanism. But again, if the CRA is going to say, yeah, take it to judgment, that's a year plus before we can get any real result. And then what? It's the CRA going to say, if you have, if you have one outstanding judgment, is that enough? Does it require 10? So, people have turned to like the Facebook, list where, the bad actors, people that don't pay, but, it shouldn't have to be something like that, where there's a list that is, privately, curated to say who are the people paying their bills or not. Like the fact that that's where the industry is at today says a lot about, kind of where the industry is. So.
Sure. What do you see? Do you see this triggering, the rescheduling? Do you see it triggering, full legalization, the Safe Banking Act, anything like that will, that are the next steps you would think? We're not going to just stop at a reschedule, just from 1 to 3.
Go ahead, Simon.
Yeah, I was going to say, lost my train of thought. I apologize, but it's in the short term, I think it's going to be a positive thing. In the long term, I think there's going to be more consolidation. I don't think it's going to be legally across the country, just off of Schedule 3 completely anytime soon. I don't see that happening. So it's on Schedule 3. Again, it's medical. How does it impact adult use? Technically, it's still illegal from an adult use perspective. But, this industry is very fluid. It's ever so changing. And, what happened today is going to be quite different than what we're going to see a month from now, a year from now. Unfortunately, the single store, thinly capitalized operators, they're going to have to exit. They're I think like Anton said, they're going to weed out, thin out the industry a little bit, thin out the herd. And if you're properly capitalized, you have proper SOPs, and you account for this 24%, you account for federal legislation changing properly, I think you'll be okay, especially if you're vertically integrated with multiple doors or multiple operations. I think you'll see consolidation also come into play.
You know who was cheering the loudest when the rumor of rescheduling first came to light, and then finally up until rescheduling or the executive order was signed. If you notice, a lot of the publicly traded companies that trade on the Canadian Stock Exchange that are doing business in Michigan, their stocks went through the roof. Their stocks shot up. So my guess is that they're happy about what's happening. And that's probably, an example of who this is going to benefit most, right? Is the larger players, the larger operators, or the craft. It seems like there's no room for the guys that are growing mids, and those guys I feel like are going to be hit the hardest. Unfortunately, Jonathan had to downgrade his internet because of the 24% tax, and couldn't make it. And he was having issues. So, what advice would you give somebody that wants to get into this business, Simon and or Alan? If somebody came to you and say, "Hey, I got $1 million, where should I place it in this Canada, this crazy industry?" What would you tell them?
I would tell them think long and hard before coming into the industry. If it's something that they're dead set on and it's something they want to do, unfortunately, there's a number of people closing their facilities. So you don't have to go through the headaches of construction for, 6 months, a year plus. We did it during COVID, which was chaos and, headaches left and right. So right now you can get, a really good facility, whether it's, cultivation or processing. Retail doors are closing all the time. So there's an opportunity to get into an existing facility, which will speed up your process to get licensed. And then, it's from there, it's make sure you have the right relationships. Just because somebody is a relative that's in the industry or you think they're going to buy from you, there's 100 other, people trying to sell to them. And so know what your market is, know what your product is, create a niche, whether it's a certain product line or product type, know what you're going to sell and then just do whatever you can to make that, the best thing you can possibly do. You don't want to repeat it. If you take over a closed facility, they close for a reason. Whether there's a bad operator, they weren't fully capitalized, whatever the issue is, you just don't want history to repeat itself. So you can't make the same mistakes they did.
Yeah, agreed. Well said, Alan. And just to add to that, if someone came to me with $1 million, I would, along those lines, if they really want to be in this industry, I would advise them to partner with someone that knows what the heck they're doing. Because if you're coming in this industry just because you have money, doesn't equate to you being successful, especially if you don't have experience in this industry. There's people that have tried and failed and people that have tried and become successful. I would try to partner with someone who knows what they're doing to protect that investment. I love this industry. I think it's here and it's going to continue to grow in a certain way that is going to be more mature. We're several years away, especially if the federal government gets a bit more involved. It's going to be, the FDA, that's a whole nother topic. We could probably talk another hour about that. But states, unfortunately, I think will conform to what the FDA wants. But just to kind of back up a little bit with some additional advice with the 24%, even though the state is not going to require you to file or pay anything until the fourth quarter, which again is January of 2027, we're starting to implement these procedures now. And I recommend clients do that or people in the industry do that as well. Don't wait until the end of the year. Build out these processes now. Reconcile your books monthly. Account for this tax monthly. And keep a log, accrue these things monthly. Because part of the tax itself, if there's, as we all know, products get destroyed, products get returned. Those are credits. You get a credit for those types of products that have either been returned or destroyed. That tax has been assessed, even though it wasn't paid, but you get a credit for that. So if you sent an invoice for $10,000 and a customer 3 months later returns 3,000 of it, well, technically the tax was accrued. Now we could adjust the tax calculation to offset $3,000 worth of sales, which again would be about $750 to $720. So things like that. Don't wait because you don't want to be the last one in line trying to implement these SOPs and trying to stay in compliance, because as we all have seen, if you're not in compliance, you're going to be heavily fined by the CRA.
We do have one question from one of our viewers that I'd like to get in here. This is from Anthony Freed. Is it taxed at every level? I thought bulk products like biomass and distillate liters would not be taxed.
So I think Simon answered it earlier. It's only taxed the first time it goes to the retailer. So grower to grower, processor to processor, grower to processor is not taxed. It's only taxed when it goes to the retailer the first time. And then if a retailer sends to another retailer, it's not taxed between them. So just that first processor or grower sending it to the retailer is the one that has to account for the tax to the state.
Thank you. Time flies when you're having fun, guys. We are over an hour. I'd like to thank all you guys for being on the show today. Simon, Alan, Anton. We appreciate all the viewers. We had quite a bit of activity and viewers. We are always looking for guest speakers and panelists to be part of our show. If you're interested, please apply to be or get at me if you'd like to be a speaker. Wanted to give another shout out to our sponsors today, Band, Gold Crown, Community Choice Credit Union, and Beamer. We appreciate all your support and to make the show possible. if you're interested in sponsoring one of our shows, please reach out. Also, thank you, Anton, for being our celebrity co-host here. It was a great informative hour, guys. Our next live broadcast is going to be January 7th at 2 p.m. Wednesday. Join the Facebook group on Facebook. Follow us. Follow the Meet Connect Puff on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Share today's show with your network. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Merry Christmas to you and your families. Happy New Year. And I'm going to be like a kid. I'll see you next year. Thanks again, everyone. And appreciate you guys.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks
for having me.
Thank you, guys.
You bet.